in the end, we've never really been able to carefully measure them or even go after the medical benefits of them yet. But now that we have so much biomass and science is really zeroed in on us, right? And the PhD is telling us, well, this is this. So like the idea for something I've always liked working with is I'm not a scientist. I just do extraction. I know it very well. But to work with a scientist and be able to have communication with them and talk about the different pieces of equipment that we could potentially use, that was a very big deal to us specifically in the beginning. It was like, well, what other scientific equipment out there can we use to get these terpenes? And then now we're just getting to minor cannabinoids like THC and CBG, and so on and so forth. So after those, I think that we'll move on to that next step. And I think that we're finding, you know, for me as a consumer, I find that live resin and hashes are too.
Hey Shay, dinner just kicked out. We'll take a short break. You guys have any questions? Or we can already get back in?
Oh yeah. Next time.
Testing.
No worries, thanks. Yeah, so we just had a question, you know, how many cannabinoids, how many terpenes are actually found within cannabis? Cannabinoids are actually a subclass of terpenes. They actually occur in other plants, but cannabinoids specifically are a class of terpene that contain 2 or 3 rings in them. They're primarily found within cannabis. There are a few other bacteria, yeast, lichens, and trees that do produce some minor cannabinoids. But the vast majority of cannabinoids are primarily found within the Cannabaceae family of species. So yeah, up until I think in Colorado, testing started popping off about 2009, 2010 because medical dispensaries. California, Addison, I think, opened one of the first ones, Steve Hill. So I think that was 2006. So pretty much we did not have any analytical testing of cannabis outside of university labs abroad until the early 2000s. So everything that was done before the 2000s was based on the grower's smell. You know, for me, a lot of it has to do with what's the bud structure. You know, do you have dense buds versus loose buds? Loose buds are probably going to be easier to break up. And then also when I look at it under a microscope, what sort of trichromes are under the microscope today? Are there lots of short stalk, what's called capitate stalk, which is longer stalks, or shorter stalk bulbous heads? Because those bulbous heads are going to be harder to screen off versus the longer heads with the longer stalks.
So I have a question for brother man here. What kind of flowers, as you speak about density, size of pieces, what does it best for you for extraction when you're going through water extraction, or a sift?
Well, for me, it would be, they're different. There are, for water hash, I want cultivars that when soaked in water, they're not going to leach water-soluble volatile organic compounds. You know, I don't want the water to smell amazing and be like a tea that I want to drink. I want all of that staying in the plant. So the profile that you want to grow are these really stinky, like they're the ones that used to get you in trouble and kicked out of hotels, and you know, the tiniest little bag in your pocket got you in trouble. Like I called it pot to get you busted by. For me, the cultivar was Renee, and it got so many of my friends busted and kicked out of hotels. And like my buddy was on his bike and he got pulled over by the police in a car because he had Renee in his backpack. Like it was that kind of, so those volatile organic compounds that wash through. I want those, so I'm looking for those cultivars. But more importantly, I want that cultivar to produce 2 of the 3 types of trichomes that Mike just mentioned, which there's 6 or 7 or whatever, but 3 of them are glandular and produce the drug content that we're looking for. And so the top one, the big one is called capitate stalked, the shorter one is called capitate sessile, and if the plant can produce 95% of its trichome base as those, and only maybe 5% or less of the bulbous, which appear to be sitting right on the leaf, they actually sit on a single stipe cell, they do not come off in mechanical screening techniques. They can with the use of liquid nitrogen and some newer ways of doing extraction that we may talk about later on here. But generally, mechanical screening.
Moving again. Ran out of gas already? Any questions? While we're waiting again? I saw your audio on the Hey, Shane! You know which button to hit over here for the generator?
Yo, thanks again.
Yeah, no problem. Let me know what you think.
That's a big generator. Oh, pretty good, buddy.
You look happy enough for you, I remember when my boy was young, happiest moment of my day, I got of my life was that I was full-time pastor, months old, down, but you know what, my boy was here today, and he follows me, his hair's long, and he's got his own little person, you have open door calls, and you can talk about anything you want, you know, we've got to do but you know what, fatherhood, I would change the world, maybe a better version.
We're keeping it on